everyone. Welcome to Back to Life Podcast, episode 4. I am so excited to, as you can see, I have a special guest, and I'm so excited about this interview. It's my very first one, and so we're going to get right to it. And so I want you to, everybody out there, to welcome Lisa, Miss Lisa. Thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome.
So first of all, I'm so grateful for you in so many ways. I might get a little emotional. First of all, you were one of the first people I called when I got my diagnosis because you have a similar story. Not exactly the same experience, however, you have a similar story. And somebody had said, you should really reach out to Elisa because she's got such a great attitude and could really shed some light on what you're experiencing. And one of the things that you had said to me was, don't compare. And what was happening for me was I was comparing my cancer to someone else's, and it was really kind of spinning me out of control. So I'm really grateful that you were there for me to kind of get me back in check of like, hey, your story is going to be different than everybody else's because your body is different than anybody else's. Your story is different than anybody else's. I do think our stories overlap. However, they're all different experiences, no matter even if we have the same type of cancer, it doesn't matter because it's still a different experience. And so I'm really grateful for that. And then also, I'm really excited because we were able to drive up here to, what do you call it? Mancos?
They call it Mancus.
Mancus, Colorado. And it's my first time being here. And it's a little bit close to Durango. Do you want to explain to?
Yes, it's almost halfway between Durango and Cortez.
Yeah, and it's absolutely gorgeous. We are looking right out this. There's this very picturesque view of is it Mesa?
The entrance to Mesa Verde.
The entrance to Mesa Verde. It's absolutely breathtaking. You have a beautiful place, and I'm so grateful to be able to come here and do the interview in person.
Yeah.
It was something because we were originally going to do this on Zoom, and I thought, well, you're only 7 hours from me. Only. So, I mean, it's better than 15 or whatever. So, so I'm really glad that I was able to come here and meet with you in person because I just think it's more personal and intimate. And so what's really cool about this is we get to a lot into your life and your story. And I think that you just have been such a positive light. And I think that you could help a lot of people with what you've experienced. And we all have lessons to learn from each other's stories. And so I wanted to just start with basically, I guess my first question would be to tell me about like where you were at before the big diagnosis that you got, what was going on in your life, and then like just basically how did you find out what happened and what you had and all that kind of stuff.
Sure. Actually, I was living life, working and getting out and playing, hiking and camping and biking, taking the kayak out, in the dating world, doing all of that, and just went for the annual checkup. And you get that diagnosis, it was sobering.
Yeah, it can be very sobering.
Yeah.
So I've always known you to be very athletic. We've known each other since like, I would say, was it around 2017 when we met?
Probably
Okay.
about that.
Yeah, and so I've always known you to be very athletic and like a go-getter and like we're gonna get it done type of woman. And so tell me about so you were active and you were doing all the things and living life and you had a great job and all those things were going on and you were in the dating world, which could be hard sometimes.
Right. More comical, I would
Yeah, yeah. It's very entertaining when you're in the dating. You can be in the dating scene. So you said that you went for an annual checkup. So tell me more about that and like what happened and what was the diagnosis that you got?
Sure. So, I just had some symptoms. Everybody said it was kind of like I went in for a colonoscopy. So
Okay.
everybody was saying, it was like hemorrhoids or those types of symptoms. But went for the colonoscopy, and then while I'm waking up, my daughter's there, and they just said, well, we found something. We're pretty sure it's cancer, so I'm gonna hook you up with the two. These are the two best places to go. And it's funny how that, you go to anesthesia, you wake up real quick when you have that diagnosis, when you get that information.
Well, yeah, I can. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can relate.
So what I was told was that it was, although they're doing the colon, right, it was low enough in the colon that it's considered rectal cancer. So I ended up with rectal cancer, and I couldn't even tell you the name of it anymore because it's this long thing.
Well, yeah, they add on all these terms. It's like
Exactly.
carcinoma, la la la, long,
Exactly.
long, long. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, yeah. Okay.
Exactly.
So rectal cancer, and was it like a polyp or?
So no, it was in the rectal wall, and they
Okay.
just didn't know to what extent.
Okay.
So,
Gotcha.
yeah, it was within 2 weeks. I went to Anschutz, and got, like, they did more. Basically, I sat down with the team, the cancer team.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
which was, the surgeon and the oncologist and the oncologist nurse, and
Yeah.
this team of people. And I remember sitting across from them, and they're saying, well, it looks like it has metastasized. They had information that it had metastasized more. So it had gone through the wall of the rectum,
Okay.
had metastasized, and they didn't know how many lymph nodes were involved or any of that stuff. So they were, talked about doing surgery and all those pieces. And as they're going through all of this, I'm listening, and I came to this spot where it's like, okay, I have one question for you. Is there hope,
Yeah.
or is this a death sentence? I mean, it's a very real question.
Yeah.
Very blunt, very matter
Yeah.
of fact. Like, let's get this said. Like, let's hit this. What are we doing with it?
Right.
And they said they would fight for a cure. So it didn't really answer the question, but I figured if there's the possibility,
Mhm.
I live in that 2% or
Right.
1% or
Right.
70% at that point. I didn't know.
Yeah. I think it's a really good place to be and such a good attitude to have where it's like, from my own personal experience dealing with the medical side of it, they're not really allowed to tell you like, oh yeah, there's a cure. Like they're pretty vague.
Mhm.
And so I think that's actually good in a way because it's like, well, there is always hope and always a possibility of getting better. And what's great about your story is you did conquer it, which is why we're even here, why
Right.
we're even talking about it. Which not everybody has that blessing, because we've lost. You and I have a mutual friend that we lost to rectal cancer.
Mm-hmm.
So unfortunately, that happens, and so. However, back to life is about promoting the stories of hope and possibility versus the
Absolutely.
doom and gloom and like life is over thing. Because, like you said, if there's a percentage of a possibility, then 2% is living in that 2% is better than living in the 90% of like doom and gloom. So I really love that about you because I mean, that's what this is about is like bringing hope into people's lives that
Mm-hmm.
you can conquer something like this. So I heard you say that they threw a lot of information at you, which is I'm very familiar with because it's like,
Right.
what are you talking about right now? That's just like overload. I mean, they hand you out so many books and pamphlets and stuff, and it's like, okay, what is really going on here? And I love how you were just like, okay, what is that? Like, what are my odds here? Like, what is happening? And so I'm glad that you were able to take that and go, you know what, I could do this. I can do this. So I guess my other question would be, so when all that was going on, what was going on for you emotionally? Because I think that that's something that we don't talk a lot about in this, I guess, the cancer or disease world is, I find that there's a lot more information on the medical part of it versus like, well, what happened to you emotionally? Like, because that for me is a huge part of this.
Right. Um, well, initially I freaked out about it. And I would say kind of like in that daze. So
Mm-hmm.
I really hadn't taken it in that it could be this bad thing. I didn't feel bad. I didn't have any of those
Mm-hmm.
components, but there was this fear.
Mm-hmm.
And when I get nervous or I get fearful, I go into task mode. Like I
Mm-hmm.
just know that, like I try to move away from those emotions. Um, so I did research to an extent.
Mm-hmm.
I would go in just to find out a little bit about it, but I also gave myself a cutoff
Yeah.
because I knew if I dug too much into it, then it's like then I'm starting to take that in,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't. That didn't need to be a part of me. I didn't need to hear all the other stories or bad or
Mm-hmm.
that. So I'm reading more up on the what is it exactly, understanding what it is, and then um, really focusing on how is my body going to heal this.
Right.
Emotionally, I refused to go into a place of the why me's.
Yeah.
Refused to go there. Absolutely, it just didn't work for me. It's not a why me. This is here to teach me something, and I have something to grow from this.
Mm-hmm.
And I get to own how I'm going to process and go through this. Um, so I lived on that. Uh, I guess I would say I've always lived in that rare percent. I've always done things that are different than others
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. And so I just never saw it as anything less than I'm going to beat this.
Yeah.
It was just never an option.
Yeah. I love that, and I can relate to the experience of task because it's somewhat of an escape because it's like I don't think this is happening right now, and I also picked up on too like not going too far into the rabbit hole of there's a lot of misinformation,
Mm-hmm.
and when you go to Google, there's just so much negative. You're gonna die. Like there's a lot of statistics that are very old statistics, and so I always talk about how like Google is probably not a great place to go to do research. It's you want to go to like maybe some journals and like studies and different things like that versus like what are all the people saying about this because there's so much misinformation, and that's the thing that I got tied up into a little bit was like, okay, I don't even know what's real at this point. Like I don't even have no idea because there's just so much information out there now. Like we're in a world of information.
Right.
um, it's at our fingertips, which is beneficial and then not always beneficial because you can go in that rabbit hole of like, oh my God, this happened to this person and that person, and what's going to happen to me now? And what I love about what you said too is, and I mentioned this in the first episode about like, why me? It's like, well, why not me? Because this is happening to a lot of people, and unfortunately, it's the thing. And it's like, okay, well, it's happening, and what I'm hearing you say too is that there was a place for you where you accepted that this is happening and instead of denying that. And I think that's really key to getting healthy again is like, okay, I'm accepting that this is happening right now.
Mm-hmm.
Now what do I do? Now what do I do with it is going to make a big difference. Instead of in the poor pity party type of thing. And I mean, there's room for that, I guess. But it's like, okay, well, what am I going to do with this story now? Like, am I going to just let it ruin me, or am I going to, kind of step out of it and go, okay, what do we, how do we conquer it? Which
Yeah.
is what I love.
Well, definitely you're in this place. Well, I can only speak for me.
Yeah.
I was in this place.
Yeah.
I was in this place that it is what it is. I didn't have to go back and review my life to figure out how I got here because there's nothing about that I could change.
That's right.
And worrying or thinking about how bad it could be or how it could affect me, any of that stuff wasn't productive. It was a waste of time.
Right.
And all it did would bring, it would make me anxious or it make me sad and I didn't have time for that. Like, how am I in this moment at this time? And that's always kind of been my focus. You're talking about the media. I had a friend that was going through the rectal cancer. Um, just about a month ahead of me. It sounded like a lot the same thing. They chose a little different treatment model than I did. And as I kept watching their posts on Facebook, while I care very much about the person, I had to let that go because it was a different story. And I
Right.
had to keep telling myself what they're going through. I'm not feeling that same way. I'm feeling this is how I feel. And this is my journey. And this is my story.
Yes.
And my story isn't going to be like anybody else's story. So, to worry about what their symptoms were or what's happening next for them, they weren't the next step that I was going to be following. So I had to focus on where I was at in each of those moments. And yeah, there was tough moments. There are definitely tough moments, but I also went to that place where I'm strong. I've always been healthy. I feel like I can do this, and just not worry about it. Just be in that place and to remember I don't have it that bad. There's people who had things so much worse than I have lived much worse lives than I have. And I can just go back to this is my story, this is the space I'm in. Just move forward through it.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that you shared that because I had a similar experience where it's like going into the comparing, and which is what you helped me with a lot. Because and it's true, it's not all rainbows and sunshine.
Nope.
Obviously,
Nope.
we've gone through some treatments, and and it can be hard, and that's the reality of it. And at the same time, it's like we don't have to go down that rabbit hole and into the comparing. And I think that you did the wise thing with, like, okay, you set a boundary for yourself because you knew, like, if you were to keep watching that story unfold the way that it was, that it wouldn't have done you any good, and it would have just kept you in fear. And that's one thing I wanted to mention too, is that I think that there is a lot of fear around the word cancer. And do you think that that makes a difference? Like for you, like going into the fear or not in the fear, did that make a difference for you?
I think it definitely makes a difference. I think where I went to, where you start reading things, you can be anxious about it, and I know, like, you think about this, like when you have anxiety or if you're sad, how that impacts your body.
Yeah.
And I just kept telling myself, if I add that on top of the cancer that I already have, my body has to fight that much harder.
Right, right.
And so for me, it was to find the things to be grateful for, to count all my blessings, because, oh Lord, like the blessings were coming out of the woodwork, right? The people that were supportive, those pieces, those were huge. And so that fear piece for me, when I started moving into that, then I took myself away because I knew that fear would then build into anxiety, which could build into more like depression, not like clinical, but how I was feeling about things. And I just like I couldn't be in that space because I knew that would add to the stress.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So is there anything that you discovered, like the rectal cancer was tied to? Like, was there anything under that you started to go, wait a minute, this might be something I need to heal from? Because we talk a lot about disease and dis-ease, and I've talked about this before in earlier episodes. Is dis-ease is anything that takes you out of peace and harmony. So obviously, rectal cancer is taking you out of peace and harmony. So is there anything that you like discovered underneath that was significant for you?
Yes, it's one of the things that I still struggle with, to be honest with you. I So a lot of times we talk if it's something to do with rectal cancer, it's because you're anal retentive, right?
Yeah.
Something. What was I holding on to? What
What
was I
shit are
holding?
you not letting go of?
That's right. I had gone through a divorce, and uh, my kids are older, but there was knowledge. There was some knowledge about some of that stuff going on, and as a responsible parent, you don't put your thoughts, you don't share that stuff with your kids. And I didn't share with a lot of people. I was in a small community, so I didn't want to talk. I didn't let the truth out because it didn't look favorably on others, and so I just kept a lot of that in. And I think not dealing with that might have something to do with it. I'm not 100% sure,
Yeah.
Because I add the other pieces too. Like there's diet and all that other
Yeah.
stuff. Like what other things have I been exposed to in my life?
Right.
But I did take notice, and I really had time to think about some of those things and process them. And
Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think I'm a whole different person
Oh yeah, yeah.
going through this
Yeah, we'll
process.
talk about that. We'll talk about what changed. Yeah, I think I'm definitely a believer in that. There's something to it. That there's something to about something in your body that's manifesting itself. In physically that there's some kind of emotional thing tied to it. And like for me with breast cancer, um, I talked about like the mothering part, the nurturing part that I had missed when I was a child, and I've always known that.
Hmm.
And then it was just I just went to a different level with it. So it's like, and I know that you've done a lot of work, internal work already, and so I feel like, and maybe you can relate to this part, is that the cancer was like, bam, it's like, okay, there's more, you got to go a lot deeper here than you did before. And so I can relate to the holding in the expression. And you and I've talked about this offline is like, yeah, I mean, I wasn't allowed to express myself as a child. And then I went into the military, and that, like we talked about this earlier, the motto is shut up and color. And like, you don't get to be who you are. You just have to suck it up and do what you're told. And now I'm like way opposite of that. So, the diagnosis, I got two diagnoses, and those actually just, I mean, it was like, okay, it's time. There's no holding back now. Like, it, and I know you can relate to this because you said it earlier about, I'm just in this moment and I'm going to appreciate this moment because we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, and we just don't. We have no idea. I mean, we're not invincible, and one of the things that changes is our bodies. Like they're not going to stay the same. They're just not.
You
So
don't have to have cancer to be in that position.
exactly.
None of us know. None of us know.
Exactly. None of us know.
The healthiest person doesn't know.
Exactly. The healthiest person doesn't know. So, and I thought I was so super healthy, and then all of a sudden it's like, bam, nope. It's like being ran over by a train. So, yeah, you just never know what will happen, and so like I think that doing this podcast is hopefully, my hope is that it helps somebody to start to go, wait a minute, all I do have is this moment. I can appreciate, like when I get up and I actually breathe, I'm so grateful for another day because I don't know what's going to happen. And you know this will hopefully help people with anything that's going on, not necessarily just cancer. I mean, this is definitely going to bring in that crowd a little
Right.
bit, but I think that this is really for anybody that's struggling with
Anything.
whatever it is. Like,
It could be divorce.
Yeah.
Like, to be honest
Yeah,
with you. Or
well,
it could be,
yeah,
anything.
absolutely. Well, I really think that the emotional piece of it and not dealing with some of those emotions really does create disease in your body. And I had an experience of just feeling complete sorrow in my body and not really having like, I didn't really have like a memory or anything like that. It was just this deep sorrow and so much grief in my body. And just giving myself permission to feel it and let it out, I think is super important to healing whatever is going on. Like, I don't think you also always have to have like a label of, oh, I was locked in a trunk when I was 4 or whatever, like
Right.
whatever it is. And I don't mean to say that lightly because I had a very traumatic childhood. So if anybody was ever locked in a trunk, I apologize. It's like you just, it's uh, with anything, it's like, okay, what do I do with it now? Like, what can I do different? How do I live in the moment? And that's what this is all about, is being great. I think gratitude also is really something I hear from you too. And I think that's been huge for me as well, as like, you know what? I'm grateful to be waking up in the morning and, living my life, and I get another day. I get a bonus day is what I call it now. It's like, oh wow, I could have been dead in November and now I got bonus time. So I'm excited about that. Like, you know, so so you got the diagnosis, and then tell me about like you went through some treatment, and so tell me a little bit how that went for you.
Sure. So treatment, I had 8 rounds of chemo
Okay.
and 25 rounds of radiation. Um, to tell you about it.
So tell me about like what did it? So did you ever question? Because this is something I've battled a little bit
Mhm.
with. Is like, oh, what treatment do I do? Do I do the treatment? Do I not do the treatment? And like, I talk about this in some of my videos. Is that there's fear? There can be fear on both sides of it, of like doing it and not doing it. And so, I just wanted to know like what happened for you to reconcile that part of it because I know that's a huge piece for people.
Right. With mine, they told me pretty much I was going to be going through treatment either way if I wanted to get rid of the cancer.
Okay.
So, my hope was that I would get to avoid surgery by going through all the treatment.
Right.
It didn't work out exactly that way, but it definitely reduced things.
Okay.
Um, I would, chemo was rough.
Yeah.
Some of the meds didn't work with me, impacted me pretty hard. So it's kind of a cocktail.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
do a cocktail.
Familiar with that.
And yeah, and
Chemo cocktail.
yeah, one of those chemo meds had some pretty negative effects,
Okay.
and so that was taken away. And those are some of those. I don't know. The one is like some neuropathy types of things.
Right.
So
Didn't you say you had something happen to your throat?
yeah, so one of them impacts the mouth
Okay.
a lot, and so I drank something cold, and it was like having broken glass and swallowing needles. It was horrible.
Yikes.
And then it would make me feel blind for short periods of time. And so when talking with the doctors, they decided that that was one of those things that they might not be able to reverse.
Yeah.
So that med was stopped.
Right.
So there's a little piece of you like, oh, if they stop that med, is that going to be a bad thing? And it doesn't have to be.
Yeah. Right.
It doesn't have to be. So we did stop that med, did that. I would go in and get my treatments, and I wore a 3-day pack or 2-day pack, whatever it is. So it would continue to do pump the
Oh, okay.
chemo in.
Oh, got it.
And I worked the whole time, and I work in school, so I carried this pack under my clothing, and it was, it was like this big and
Yeah.
this thick. And so I would carry that, and I go meet with kids, and I do my job during the day. I only had one time where the beeper started going off when I was working with a student, and I just said, "Excuse me." I'll be
The
right
student's
back.
like, wait, what's beeping?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it didn't. It wasn't scary for anybody. And then I'd go back in another day and get that taken off. So there was some time. I worked through the whole thing, stayed as active as I could.
Yeah.
And then of course I'm going through all this during COVID. So when it came to radiation, my goal was to have it all knocked out by the first of the year, and I started in July.
Right.
And so I did the radiation. I would have to go. I lived over an hour from the hospital to go and do the radiation treatments. And I had no idea that they used tattoos.
Oh wow.
So that was
I didn't know
something.
that either.
Yeah, they do little tattoo dots on your skin. So
Oh.
I did these little tattoos.
Interesting.
So it's what they know how to get right back to the same spot. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But they stayed with a friend. So I go out, and somebody I barely knew. And again, this is everything kind of like falls into place, and there's things that are just to be so grateful for.
Right.
That she let me stay at her house for those 4 weeks that I was doing chemo, or the radiation.
Yeah, I think well, first of all, I would say that's amazing that you to do that. Like I've been I was a little bit of a baby where it's like, I don't want to work.
Yeah, I worked
I just want to lay
I was
around.
working from home with even the radiation
Yeah,
stuff going.
I didn't. I was blessed to not have radiation. You know, we were talking about other people's problems. Like you throw them all in a pile, you want to keep your own, right? So I think you were talking about this person that helped you out. That's one thing that really has helped me a lot is so much support. And what I'm hearing you say is it came in a different way you didn't expect. And I think that that people really really do want to give to others. Like they want to help out, and that was something I had struggled with all my life.
Same.
Yeah,
I
we're
can.
kind of the same in that. It's like, yeah, let me help you. No, I got it. Okay, I got it. I could do it all myself. I
I
don't
don't
need
want to.
anybody's
Yeah,
help.
I don't want to.
Yeah, yeah,
make it hard for you.
I don't want to make it hard on you is
Mhm.
something that I said a lot about. It's like, oh, I don't want to make them drive all the way over here or do this. And so I think that what I'm hearing you say is you let that in and that made a difference for you. And I think that's huge. So tell me more about that, that gift of support for you, what that was like.
Sure. At home, I had my daughter was there. I was seeing somebody at the time was there helping out as well. Gals at work came together. I would end up with things on my desk at work. They did a little bit of fundraising for me, which was really nice. I would get cards in the mail, phone calls, or stuff on Facebook. I'm kind of a private person, so not a whole lot of people actually knew what was going on.
Yeah,
But for those
you
that
did
did,
keep it kind of private because I didn't really know the extent of it
Mhm.
until we started talking a little more, and I was like, oh crap, I had no idea. I also think too, like until I got it, until I was diagnosed with, I don't have to say I have it, but until I was diagnosed with it, I didn't realize the impact, such the impact it has. Until I started to experience it. And I'm like, holy crap, like there's people around me that have been through so many things I couldn't even have imagined what it was like. So now I can.
Yeah.
So,
One of the gals that was working for me had gone through breast cancer and had beat it. And so I said, "This is what I just went through. I don't even know what to expect. Do you have some time that we could just you could talk to me about it?" And she met me for breakfast, and she brought me a little book, um, and what they call like a port pillow. The port can be really uncomfortable sometimes with seat belts and stuff. And yeah, super nice to share information about it. And comfort me. And here are the couple things. Here's like a little like goodie bag of some things for you, and it was like crackers and lotion and that type of stuff. Just things that helped her. It was super nice. So it's nice to be able to do that for somebody else.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that makes a huge difference. Like not only for you, but for someone else that has made a huge difference for me. Just to talk to you about all this stuff is like it just like opens up so many different things where it's like wow, like I had no idea about this, and I'm learning about that, and so it's really nice to have that support. How do you think it would have gone for you if you didn't have that? Like if you didn't have those people around, like because I've heard of people that don't have any support, and I have a hard time imagining that. So how do you think it would have been?
Um, it definitely would have been harder.
Yeah,
I didn't expect the support,
right.
which is crazy, right? I just didn't expect the support.
Right.
So I had it in my head. I had it laid out. This is how I'm going to do it. This is how I'm going to create this. If I get into a situation.
Do you think there's something unconscious though about that like there was something in you that really wanted it? Because it happened, right? So for me, it was like I think I might have created this unconsciously because um, I needed that nurturing piece that I didn't get from my mom. So that's where I went to. I was like, oh wow, I think I created this to happen in a way where people were just coming and rallying around me and giving me so much nurturing and love that I don't think I ever had that experience until that moment of kind of just waking up and going, wow, there's a lot of people around and like they're just very nurturing and caring and bringing me stuff and helping. And, I had never really felt that nurture before that time. So,
Right. No, I hadn't felt it, at least not in a long time.
right.
And I was able to go back and say, well, I can accept this because I've always been that person to give to everybody else. And so my big lesson was you have to be able to accept it too.
Right.
And take the help.
Yes.
The help.
Allow yourself to receive.
Allow myself to
Yeah.
receive, and then also that acknowledgement that when I don't receive the gift, I'm taking away from somebody else.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
probably hit me the hardest.
Yeah.
Because I'm not that person to want to hurt anybody else ever, right?
Right.
Like, you don't need to
Right.
help me. I've got this. I don't want to
Yeah.
put you out.
Yeah.
And then
Exactly.
here they're helping me, and I'm now have to see it from the other side, which
Yes.
is I've been taking away from other people. And they're trying to give it to them. And it's not
Right. No, definitely not. Yeah. It's like robbing them of something.
exactly.
Yeah. And I think it's, yeah, I think I was in a habit, the same kind of habit of like, oh, you don't have to do that. Like I remember my ex brother-in-law, who was like, what do you need? What do you need? I'll bring you whatever you need. And I was like, what do I need? I don't need anything. Like in my head.
Right.
And then I thought, wait a minute, I'm not even giving myself permission to ask for what I need. Like, you know, like, and I think sometimes I would struggle with even knowing what I needed.
Yeah, I still
Could you
do.
relate to
No,
that?
I still do. I still do.
You still do. It's
Yeah.
like, wait, what do you need? I don't need
I don't
anything.
know.
I
I'm
got it.
pretty independent. I have a
You-
lot of skills.
well, I've come up with a motto is that like there's everybody needs something at some point. You're always going to need something, like whether it's milk or somebody to hug or whatever. Like we all need something at some point. So now it's like whenever anyone asks me, it's like, okay, this is what I need right now in this moment. Versus like, no, I don't need anything right now. No, you always do. You always need something. Like something
Yeah.
you need something always. Yeah, I think the training for me was like, oh, if you need anything, you're needy, you're too needy, you know, that you're too much, you know, like we don't do that
Yeah.
here.
Well, my dad always raised me to be super independent. Don't
Oh,
get
yeah.
yourself in a situation that you can't
Yes.
take care of yourself.
Yes.
And so I've always just kind of lived by that, and it's never been to prove anything to anybody else.
Yeah.
You know, if I need to take care of myself, I can take care of myself. And,
Yeah.
you know,
That was the training.
wear the big girl pants,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
and then
Yeah.
figuring it out.
Yeah. I think I don't think well, none of us will arrive, right?
Yes.
We're never going to arrive until we're gone, till we're gone to the next life, right? So, um, yeah, so I wanted to talk to you about what you wrote. So you wrote, and this actually really impacted me as well, is you had put, on Facebook, you had put the lessons that you learned from being diagnosed and with cancer. And I would just love for you to read that because, as we've been talking, I know that you're in the process of writing a book. She's rolling her eyes because she knows I'm going to hold her accountable to this. I think that the book will help a lot of people, and when you hear when everybody out there hears the lessons, it's really amazing and powerful. And I think that the book will be fantastic and kind of extracted from this. So this will give you guys a little bit of a kind of a capture of what this looks like. So if you wouldn't mind
Sure.
reading it, that'd be great.
So really what I started this out is this great news. It needs to hit Facebook, and then the lessons that I learned through cancer. So the first one was don't wait, get the damn test, and don't put it off. 50 was the age marker. Now they say earlier. So now they're saying
45, I
Yeah.
think, is what they're saying now. And actually, even earlier than that, if it's in the family.
correct.
Yeah, so
40.
they told me 40 for anybody I'm related to. So,
Same,
yeah.
exactly the same. Do it. The test beats the rest. Mammogram, colonoscopy, whatever the doctor recommends, do it. I didn't. I put mine off. Canceled on me twice. I wished I would have pushed to get it done sooner. Made things harder. The second was fight. A diagnosis of cancer can be scary. The wave of disbelief can be tough. Don't quit, set your shoulders, and find a team you trust. Accept nothing but the best and ask every question that hits you. Quality and quantity makes no difference. My life, it's my life. Let me decide. My first question: is there hope, or is it a death sentence? Yep, it's real. Hardcore truths, fighting chance, and working for a cure was all I needed to hear. So it's like let the battle begin. I've been up for the challenge,
Yeah.
I suppose. Third, our journey is our own. I know survivors, I know victims. It can make you crazy if you try to make any sense of it. I chose the mantra, their journey is not my journey. I've heard of side effects and symptoms, long-term effects, surgeries, mishaps, and horror stories. Their journey is not my journey. Helped me focus on what was real for me, my body, my cancer, my journey. Different. Very different. Fourth was faith. And so, yes, I have faith. Never been one to boast, as my faith journey is unlike most. However, it is strong, and I guarantee the power of that faith got me through. So if you can lean into something, like just lean back in the boom. Like, it's exactly what it's supposed to be. It'll all happen as it's supposed to be. Just 100% leaned into faith. You don't see, and then this just talks about the picture that I posted. So on my drive into the hospital, the clouds were pink.
Yeah.
And it looked just like an angel.
Oh, I love
And so anyway, I took the picture on the way into that surgery. So let's see, the journey. Yesterday I was pronounced a survivor. When I heard that, it was the first time I ever really looked at the battle itself. It wasn't fun. My journey wasn't terrible. I can laugh at some of it. I just put a note in here, getting tired cleaning the garage.
Yeah.
Life continued. I finished. I solo camped. I hopped on a motorcycle and enjoyed seeing family and friends. Life went on. Good things, bad things, they happen. Never make them more than what they are, because in all truth, they are just what they are, not punishments. I look for lessons. What can I do? 6 was gifts. I am blessed to be surrounded by amazing people who checked on me, prayed with me, over me, and for me. Texts, cards, a place to stay, a shoulder, an ear, a hand, a hug, a walk, a thought. Each and every one of them was counted. They were amazing, amazingly timed gifts, and everyone perfect. And even my neighbor down the street, like I didn't really have a huge connection with him. He had lost his wife to some lung issues, but we used to walk, and he would have something from the Bible every time we walked.
Nice.
So super
Very nice.
Yeah. 7 was clean house. I took a really hard look at what was around me, what brought me happiness, what brought me pain, what lifted me up, what brought me down, what gave me peace. I've been cleaning house. What isn't good for me or adding value has been getting an exit ticket. There's too much good that gets buried by complications and clutter. Setting setting the bad free brings the good to the top. This is not to say that things or people are bad, but if not adding to positive, then that burden carries a weight that I no longer choose to carry. Garage sale coming soon. Garage sale. 8 is patience. Control is a myth.
Yeah, that's another one.
Anxiety is based on a desire to control something that isn't in our control. The weather, other people, cancer. We have many options. Seek shelter, dress for the weather, have a conversation, or walk away. Don't smoke and eat right. The truth, however, lightning still strikes. People have baggage, and cancer isn't selective. The doctors can find no cause for my cancer. Healthy, active, without vices, except for the blizzard runs during the blizzard. No real indicator of markers for any of this. Okay, so I had to accept, know the process and work through the process. Accept timelines and holidays, appointment schedules and work deadlines. Some knew my story, some never did. It didn't matter. Day by day, hour by hour, minute by minute, whatever it took to check in with myself. It is a process. Control is a myth, and time is a gift. Patience is a virtue. 9. In the moment, when time got tough, breathe in, breathe out. How am I right now? This moment. This I can handle. What comes next, I will deal with then. Right now, in this moment, I am okay. I know what I can do. This is my next step. Breathe in, breathe out. 10th, on gratitude. I had always been one to forgive and see the good, an eternal optimist and lover of life and all that nature has to offer. However, gratitude for gifts that others possess became a real focus. People who write beautiful notes, send cards, counsel, listen, have skills such as surgeons and can draw blood. People who care for the angry, and who care for the people who write their very words. I experience gratitude from a whole different perspective. We don't take near enough care of the people around us. I've seen the difference between people who feel sorry for themselves and those who maintain a positive perspective. While the outcomes may not change, how they are received and the energy levels are marked different. Coming from a place of awe and gratitude helped me to see the wonders of the world around me. This is my greatest lesson, this process. Let's see. I'm going to read the sum up here.
Sure. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
To sum it up, cancer isn't fun. Always hated the saying cancer sucks. It isn't fun, but it doesn't have to suck. We get to experience it from a negative perspective or find the positive ignorance. It is different for everyone. The journey teaches many lessons. Control is a myth, and we can save so much wasted time and energy by accepting what is and living in the moment. Outcomes will vary. Our journey is our own. We are date stamped by God. People outlive predictions by months and years. Fears happen, science progresses. Robots improve recovery time, medicines have improved in the last year. I wish cancer was obsolete and nobody had to hear the word. Truth is, it isn't going away, and more people are hearing it. More and more people are surviving it. He is catching it early. So take the damn test, be proactive, don't put it off. It's better than it is.
Yeah, yeah, I love that so much. I mean, the whole 10 lessons is just beautiful. And take the damn test for real. I mean, stop
For
putting it
real.
off for
For
help.
real.
Yeah, I think I did that too. Is like, oh yeah, I'll do it later, or I'm fine. Like that was my motto. It was like, oh, it's probably just this thing, and then ends up being something huge, right? So I love that you shared all of that. Is really amazing, and I think that the book will be incredible, and will help lots and lots of people. So, um, and you and I will hold each other accountable on some things, and one of them will be your book. Your book date. When's that book coming out? And so I'm excited to be a part of and then be a part of this journey with you. So tell me, I just want to start wrapping up here, but I do want to ask you a question about what happened when you found out, like, what, when you found out, like, you're cancer free. I'm making an assumption that you are disease free now. And so tell me a little bit more about what happened for you on that day.
It's the thing you wait to hear. Yeah. Take kind of that sigh of relief.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
finally out of my body.
Yeah.
And then now what do I do to help prevent it from coming back?
Right.
For sure. Right. And I'm going to be supervised, tested, whatever, for the next 5 years.
So yeah, there's a lot of testing.
So
A lot of X-rays and stuff.
at the time, they're not finding any of those cancer markers.
Yeah.
I just go with the faith that they won't be there.
Yeah.
At least take a little breath when you think about going back in. This too is.
Scan anxiety is real. Scan anxiety could be real. Yeah. Yeah. That's great. I'm really glad to hear that you don't have any evidence of it, which is fantastic news and in itself. And amazing. I think amazing doctors makes a difference. The team of people that you have that are handling your care makes a difference. Um, so is there anything like you would tell someone, like anything you would have done different? Like if you could go back and change anything, is there anything that you feel that you could have done different or would have done different, or would you have just left it?
I don't know. I think in a lot of ways everything just lines up perfectly. But I think that's the biggest lesson that I've learned is to be more open to seeing how perfect everything lines up.
Right.
And I know for everybody, it's a different spiritual journey.
Yeah.
So I think some of them are pointing to others, but I have just there's been so many different things that have just lined up perfectly. Like I ended up with the best oncologist basically in the U.S. What were the chances of that happening? Well, right? Exactly as they were. People showed up when they showed up. My parents were able to come and help, and just everything just kind of has lined up. And so I've really stayed focused on that. And then serious. Where
I can high five.
absolutely, absolutely, all the perfect things. In the fact that working for the miracle,
Right.
some of the things. Place that I picked is because I pay attention to the little details. I see the beauty in all the little things.
So how has your life, I know we talked about before before the thing, before BC, I got BC before cancer. And now how has life changed for you now? Like tell me what's going on in your life now and what do you think changed even more? Or what's changed for you more?
I think for the biggest thing that I noticed was once you go through big things in your life, little stuff doesn't get
Oh, yeah, like traffic.
to you. Right? Like little things just don't get to you. I work in a pretty intense job
Yeah.
where people
Yeah.
get angry and they're so, and
Yeah.
chicken.
Yeah.
I just see people for where they're at. Everybody's going through their so it's a huge part. So, I just live. I always focus on the benefit. So
Well, what I'm hearing you say is it's humbled you significantly. I can relate to that.
yeah,
It's like,
I'm not in control. I know that. I've never been in
yeah,
control.
exactly.
And I wasted so much time, worrying about stuff.
Right. It's probably caused some of disharmony with the dis-ease, right? It was like wanting to have control of the things that we don't just not have. So like that, we just don't have a lot of control over what happens to us. So I think that was all I had. Again, I'm not able to think of any other questions. Is there anything else that you would want to add or? It's almost like, what do you?
One of the things we did talk about was the words that we use.
Oh, yeah, that's me.
Um, and I talked to him here a little bit about, cancer doesn't have to suck. It's like everybody sucks. Something negative to it, and it's kind of that something where I worried about, what it's going to be like, and that it all has a root. So I think the more that I saw it, not that, I'm personally consider I love kids. I'm not that person, but
That
I
would
am,
be me.
but I am able to say that this is the experience that I'm going through. Something to learn. So I don't
Right.
but if I put something bad to it, then it's always that bad in the back of my mind. Elisa. Super careful. Yeah. The worst one. So
I think words are incredibly powerful. So it's like, you and I have had that experience of talking about the I ams and like what comes after I am. And like if you say I am broke or I am sick or I am broke or I'm dumb,
tired
I'm
or
stupid,
sad,
whatever. It's really gonna be really powerful for it to happen. So I agree with you. I think words make a big difference. And um well, I would say that you have created such a great place here, and so that's probably one of the things, one of the perks of going through what you went through was that you were like, hey, I think I don't want to live here anymore. I'm gonna move and I'm gonna buy some land and like this is just a fantastic.
It's all about being surrounded by the outdoors and beauty.
Yeah, you're in
And
nature.
apparently a backing up tractor. But other
Yeah,
people
backing up tractor. That's okay. We love that. Yeah, we're in farm country right now, so I mean, yeah, it's just a beautiful place. And so speaking of the gratitude, again, I had a friend tell me, gratitude's meant to be expressed. It's not really a feeling, but it's meant to be expressed. And so I'm really grateful for this time with you and the time that we have offline as well. And opening up your beautiful place to me it's been absolutely fantastic. And I'm looking forward to this journey with you. And reading your book that you're going to have done soon.
Yes.
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 And you were talking about a name, and you had said that you were going to call it insignificant. And that title, who knows, the title may change. And the end being crossed out, that I am significant, and that what happens in my life matters. And so I'm looking forward to learning more about that. And I will keep everybody updated whenever that, well, not whenever, September when it comes out. No pressure.
No
or
pressure.
anything. Yeah, no pressure or anything. So again, I'm
Yeah.
just grateful for you, and thank you so much for doing the podcast, and looking forward to more of the journey with you. Yeah, absolutely.
I think this is a great thing, and I hope that we just see them.
Me too. That's the whole point, right? Just to get the messages out there, and your story is going to help lots of people, and that's what matters. So thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right.